My name is Abul Mia. I am 28 years old. I suffer from Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is a muscle wasting disease. I have had this condition for when I was 7, but when I was 13, that's when it kicked in. That's when I stopped walking. Overnight, I use a ventilator, which helps me breathe in the night. So my lungs are pumped like fully, so all the carbon dioxide could come out, and it helps me sleep better. At the morning, my carers come, and that's when I take the ventilator off and get hoisted onto the wheelchair. And then I go downstairs bathroom using the flue 4 lift in my house. Then in the toilet, of course, I use the toilet. I wash myself if I need to. Well, my carers, they help me do it. I brush my teeth, and then I get dressed. Well, when I was younger, I was able to walk, and I used to play football. So I wanted to, maybe be a football player. But then once I became on a wheelchair, I thought I could maybe be a jet fighter or drive a tank or something. Challenges I face is quite numerous. Through being I don't have a lot of movement with my arms, like I can't lift them up freely, so that restricts me doing certain stuff. I can't reach certain levels and heights. I can't open the door. Regarding my condition, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, my doctors have said what they predict is my disability, my muscle wasting disability, is gonna deteriorate. It's gonna get worse, and they're trying to maintain it as possible by giving me certain medication and certain treatment, like using the ventilator in the night, using a cough assist, which helps me cough. And also, this condition doesn't only affect my muscle, it also affects my respiratory system, so my lungs. It also affects my heart. I recorded myself. I want to reflect my past few months, how it's been, and also I want people to see what the challenges people like me face, and I think not a lot of people realize how challenging it is for people like us. So I want everyone to get a little insight of the struggles we face as people with disabilities.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Abu Mumin. I am your host for tonight's show. We've had a very interesting discussion, something that is very important, pertinent, touches everybody that we know locally and globally, and that is families. Our topic title today is families through the pandemic. We're going to discuss about mental health issues, domestic violence, financial struggles. The main host, Abdul Mia, is still is coming back today, I am hearing, and hopefully we will have him next week. We have some very interesting and very well-known guests, but just a few quick priorities or rules. What we want is every one of you to who's watching to call in if you have a point to make, and our guest will try to answer. We'll try to have a discussion. Hopefully you'll benefit from this show. We've got we'll introduce our guest very shortly. Before that, let me introduce my co-host, Farhana Zaman. Sorry about that. She's a volunteer and ambassador for 13 Rivers Trust, and she will introduce about you to 13 Rivers Trust. You just saw a video of Abul. Abul is our patron for Eden Care, and his story. We're going to show another video later on about the work of 13 Rivers Trust. So Farhana, she's an educational practitioner, chair of local Unite Trade Union, trustee of Valence Community Sports Association, and she's also very actively involved in the community in a various variety of ways. And that, she's been helping 13 Rivers Trust quite a bit. She's taken part in our aid mission. So if I can kindly welcome Farhana, and who will welcome our guests as well. Thank you. Farhana, can you hear?
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction, Abu Bai. So Abu Mumin is also very well known in our community. He's the man, when it comes to the crunch, he gets the job done. We all have ideas and in good intention, but Alhamdulillah, Abu Mumin is known to me to be a very hardworking guy, and he achieved 13 Rivers Trust. 13 Rivers Trust began of a young man's journey after his personal experience. I think after his mother died, he wanted to give something back to the community. That was around probably 2015. Since then, it's grown so much from the help of all of you, our community, with all the support, donation, and voluntary work. So 13 Rivers Trust delivers Eden Care, Muslim burial, and Silat Aid. So Silat Aid is an international charity. They go to different parts of, at the moment, Bangladesh, and they help with the Rohingyas. I had the honor of actually organizing a female trip to Sylhet. It was one of the most amazing experience, and it really had opened my mind. Eden Care does a lot of befriending, and Muslim burial. They've since the pandemic, I think they've buried hundreds of people, and it's not easy during the pandemic. If anyone had experienced burial, it's not an easy thing. So they've achieved a lot. Well done to 13 River Trust and Abu Mumin. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our lovely panel of guests for tonight's show. We have Sonia Zaman Khan from the legal background. We have Waheeda Islam. She's a counselor. And we have Chris Worrall, who wears many hats. But tonight I'm going to introduce him as a housing campaign person. But he has many hats. But also the guests will have a chance to elaborate on their backgrounds when they get a chance. I think back to you, Abu Bai.
Okay. One of my job is as a host or a presenter is to make sure that you all are relaxed, and it's a family show. A lot of people are watching already. We've got I think 31 people who have joined the show. There's going to be a lot more. So all the viewers, please call in. We're going to put the number. Number, can you see 0208 123 4507? So please make a note of this number and call in anytime you want, and we will give you the priority. Now, this is a warm-up session for all our guests, including you, Farhana. Okay, now, if I ask you all to answer this, first of all, what's your favorite COVID exercise? Mine is cycling and walking. Which animal resembles you the most? And in that, please introduce yourself. So I'm going to pick on Waheeda. Please, you go first.
Okay. Favorite COVID exercise would have to be walking, mindful walking. So I've loved just walking in nature, just really kind of paying attention to my surroundings, just being very blessed to live near parks and near Regent's Canal. So that's been great. The animal that most resembles me, that's a tough one. I have no idea. I don't know why a cat comes to mind, but I think that as tired as I feel these days, a sloth is probably a better animal right now. I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm also operations coordinator for Nour Domestic Violence, which is obviously a charity that helps survivors of abuse. And I also work with Women's Health and Family Service, who provide kind of counselling to survivors of FGM and kind of mothers who are very vulnerable. So that's a little bit of background about me.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's, Chris, we'll go down. If you could do the same, please.
Thanks, Edward, and thank you, Farhana. My favourite COVID exercise, I'd have to say, I go for try and get a 5K run in at least every other day.
Wow.
So I'm living near Devon's Road, just trying to keep that up, trying to keep some sanity, I suppose, when you're working and living in your home, as is the case at the moment. You can listen to a podcast and some music, see a bit of a break. Interesting question on the animal. I would say perhaps, I don't know, a rhino. They're quite strong, but they mind their own business, when they're left to themselves, and they seem to be a placid animal that it's one that I think has a good life. Not many two people bothering it, but also not getting in the way of anyone else or the rest of nature, perhaps.
Wow. Oh, by the way, is it true you were on Panorama today?
That's correct. Yeah, it was this evening. There was a feature on shared ownership in housing associations and the way in which they've been perhaps not treating their tenants and residents in the most appropriate way. That's correct.
Interesting. We can have there's a lot of issues around housing. So maybe another day we'll have a discussion around that. Okay, Sonia, it's your turn.
I am a solicitor by profession. I have recently, although I qualified quite a few years ago, I recently opened my own firm. So it's a sole practice. And I sort of focus in the areas of family law, civil litigation, and immigration. I'm also sort of a dual jurisdictional lawyer. So I also happen to be an advocate of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, as well as a solicitor of the Supreme Court of England and Wales. So not a great time to start your own practice during the pandemic, but when I applied for permission from the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, the pandemic wasn't there. And, it just, it was good luck, bad luck. I think in a way it's good because I don't have to commute using public transport, which is, I think, during the pandemic is a blessing. I walk to work, which is good. I can, because it's local, I can come, work long hours, or I can come back, and it's flexible. It's good for my clients. So a bit of a legal background, and I also happen to be interested in politics. So sort of a member of the Labour Party. And yes, in the community for 21 years. So yeah, I know what's going on in here, I think, like all of you.
Okay.
Animal, I never thought of this question. It's quite interesting that you say. I mean, I'm not terribly fit and don't exercise quite a bit, I must admit. So in that way, I might look at myself as Chris said, as a rhino or as an elephant, perhaps. But in reality, I have to work a lot. So I am more a bee, I think, because I'm always working. So I would say a bee. Yeah.
Okay.
So which animal did you say, Sonia?
A bee.
Bee.
Bumblebee.
Busy bee. Yes, definitely.
Bumblebee.
Yeah. Always working
Bumblebee,
hard.
Yes.
Making changes.
Yeah, I just have.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, a bee. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Farhana, your turn.
Well, I'm glad I'm after Sonia because I'm not into exercise. I don't get the chance either. So I'm not gonna lie, I walk sometimes, but not as much. I would say I've been doing a lot of singing for therapy and breathing exercise.
Singing.
The animal I would say is an eagle, because eagles, no matter what they go through, any storm, if there's a storm, they're more stronger. So I think I'm an eagle, because if anything comes my way, it just makes me grow as a person and become stronger.
Okay,
Abubai,
excellent.
your turn now.
Well, I got into cycling during COVID-19, and I say I have to tell you, I was amazed at myself. I'm just cycling away, and now I've started walking because my wife can't cycle, so I want her to do something. So we started walking, and then in terms of the animal, I think I am the bear. You know, soft, gentle, but if you mess around, you know, and yeah, busy looking after the family, looking after my territory. Yeah, what's the other one? Yeah, I've been involved with. I'm a social worker by profession. I've moved away into the voluntary sector because I've worked with Barnardos, and they also do. They are more happier than the mainstream social workers, and I've developed those money center. I was part of the team there, and then my mother passed away, and as Farhana said, I developed something. I came to the realization the first generation of British Bangladeshis were dying away very quickly, and we set up the 13 Rivers Trust. It's a folklore saying of crossing the 7 seas and 13 rivers. So yeah, so we developed from there. We developed Eating Care, a Muslim Burial Fund, Facilitate, and recently we launched Rescue an Orphan, or Rescue Orphans. We want to do a museum, British Bangladeshi museum in the UK, youth work, lots of ideas. But just to give you a small charity, we had a very small office, and we didn't take that until we felt we had to because of confidentiality. But we've 72 people died in the Grenfell fire victims. We buried 42 of them. And it shows our reach into the community is pretty good. Even with COVID-19, what we're doing is not just COVID burial. We've done unprecedented number of COVID burial, but we're providing telephone befriending service. We're providing COVID food packs now, twice a week to over 200 people. So a whole range of host of activities that we've launched recently, and including this community show. My Abjo is really good at these things, so I am new. So if you think I'm really experienced, I'm trying my best. Let us now go into the discussion. And Farhana, you have the first question.
I think I have the first question. So how it's going to be, we'll take in turns, Abu and myself, asking you a question, and then you just put your hands up when you're ready to answer it. I hope everybody does come forward to answer the questions. We've only got around 5 questions, quite
Farhana,
simple.
can I just before you ask that question, just for you all to understand, during the COVID period, when everybody went into lockdown, volunteers and staff members from 13 Rivers Trust or Eating Care, we didn't. We were heavily involved. The first round, we were heavily involved in COVID burial, befriending support. So a lot of our volunteers, we came together. And just to give you some context, normally we will help with the burial support of 3 people on average a month. During the COVID time, we were receiving referral of 7 to 8 people a day. We were supporting people who were isolated, who were worried. So we had an army of volunteers supporting people through the telephone. And that's why I was saying some of the cases that we were dealing with were so complex and unbelievable. They were isolated. So we had one family member was in a room, and in the other, because they had COVID-19, and the families were worried, so they had to self-isolate. We had other family members, they lost the main breadwinner. In fact, many cases where the housewife who had limited English. So the mental torture and the difficulties that they were going through was unbelievable. So this is the first. Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
This is the first time we
No,
sort of
I was going to
come
say,
in-
like,
yeah.
so 13 Rivers Trust observed this, perceived this firsthand, the devastation that people went through the pandemic, and that's why we're here to discuss. What I like the audience, the viewers, like if you can just call up, ask any questions. We have a wonderful team here ready to answer your questions, and also call up and share your experiences as well. So shall I go ahead with the first question?
Yes, you're ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So,
Ready to go.
what can be done to mitigate the negative effects of COVID-19 on parents and their children? Waheeda.
So, I mean, there's so many different things, and obviously a lot depends on people's individual circumstances and what they're kind of capable of. I think one of the first things to remember is that we are in a pandemic, you know, so to really kind of understand that these are not normal times. You know, we may not be able to do all the things that we normally did, and to really kind of go easy on yourself, be compassionate with yourself. I can't stress that enough, how important it is, that self-kindness and really looking after yourself so that you can also look after your families. Spending time in nature is always a good one. It's been shown to improve people's mental health, their physical well-being. Spending time as a family, so doing things together, you know, that presence is so important through all of this. I know, Farhana, you mentioned breathing exercises, breathing, you know, to really breathe through this pandemic, particularly when you think about, you know, all the stuff that we're hearing about people finding it hard to breathe, etc., with the pandemic. So really kind of breathing through this, being realistic about what you can achieve, you know, whether that's at work or at home. These are different circumstances. Being realistic with children as well. You know, they're going through this pandemic. Schools are different now, so home will also feel a little bit different. So these are just some of the things. Setting boundaries, switching off from the news, you know, so all the negativity that you can kind of absorb through social media and the news, just learning to switch off sometimes as well, especially when it gets too much, and asking for help when you need it. I think recognizing when you need the help and really asking for that help when you need it.
Absolutely. With everyone, like, you know, the questions that we ask, there's only few you can answer in any way, and if you think anything's important, please just throw it at us.
Can I Asma from the live link, she said during this lockdown abuse has increased significantly, and we will cover that. This is one of the just a comment. Chris, you want to come into that question
on the abuse? Well, I'm an executive.
No, we're going to cover the.
No. Sorry, the first question.
The first question.
Abuse is the second question.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Sorry, thanks for putting it back on track. Well, look, you know, families, parents, children have gone through a lot in this COVID-19 period, and I'm not sure the government has really been helping. You've had the exams fiasco. There's been a reluctance to fund free school meals, talk about taking away travel for under 18s, particularly in London. It's been difficult for everyone. There's also, you know, loneliness and social isolation is going to be has been a huge thing, and particularly I work for a housing with care developer, and you know, we've launched a partnership with the University of Bath, and it's looking, you know, many of us are experiencing loneliness during the COVID period, but so I think it's over 2 million people over the age of 75, and these are people that are the most concerned about their health and well-being, and you know, it's already a factor in later life, but the COVID-19 has certainly exacerbated it. I think it's great that, you know, organisations like 13 Rivers Trust do a lot in you know, dealing with social isolation, with, you know, doing the phone banking, as does Aid UK. But you know, just because they live alone doesn't mean they would be usually socially inactive and interact regularly with others. So I think, you know, we've got to be thinking about our elders, people that we know in the community that you might see usually at events, particularly the Labour Party that, you know, I'm a member of, that don't necessarily have those chances to interact with people. And be good to reach out, check people are doing okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sonia?
Sonia?
Can you?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, I think there has been a surge. I think we all agree that there has been a surge in domestic violence cases like never before.
Sorry, that question
a
is
lot
coming
of the
up.
times it was seen.
Are we going on? That's actually a question.
Ah,
Shall we go on to that question now, Abu Bhai?
We can. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so we'll start then. The question was, did domestic violence get worse since the pandemic? Sonia, it's all yours.
Okay. Yes, it did. I think we all know to what extent it has increased from last year. The percentage and the statistics sort of carried out by various institutions, including Oxford University, and a lot of the organizations who work with domestic violence victims have reported that the extent to which it has increased. As a lawyer, I have seen more people come up to me, call me up, and say that the abuse is become worse. What legal help or what redress do I have in order to escape this? There are a lot of the time women were in dilemma. They didn't want to break marriages, but at the same time, it became difficult for them to sustain themselves during this time. I have, abuses of various nature, as we all know. There is the physical abuse, there is economic abuse, there is emotional abuse, there is verbal abuse, there is coercive controlling abuse. So abuses of various nature. We tend to usually think that abuse means only physical. If somebody has a black eye or has marks on his or her body, that's sort of a manifestation of abuse. But there can be all sorts of controlling behavior is one of the ones which come up quite often. Not giving money to your spouse or to your family members, and the fact that the person sort of literally starves, does not have access to food, is also something which has come up quite a bit in the community, in various communities. I've had a particular interesting case where a person who came as the spouse of an EU national, because we've got the 31st of December, sort of 2020, by which spouses of EU nationals can come in the UK and settle if they want to, provided they take the pre-settlement visa and so forth. So I've had cases where a spouse did not have, sort of Bangladeshi, is not an EU national herself, but her husband is, and she is sort of his dependent, and she's come here, and the husband is sort of abusing the person, and she's afraid to report the husband because she thinks of her visa status. Now, I had to tell her that, don't worry about it, because if your marriage does break as a result of domestic violence, you would still have legal redress to apply to the Home Office and say that these are the circumstances under which I was compelled, to leave my husband, and there are sort of legal facilities, in terms of sort of through domestic violence for the person to have temporary accommodation, to have access to benefit and funds till she is sort of sorted. So there are cases, like that, and it's very difficult for them to just say that we're going to go to the police. They went to the police and complained, and they took the complaint back in fear.
Sonia, can I just interject?
Yeah, sure.
Domestic violence, according to statistics, it's surged, and I've got a stat here. The charity Refuge say they have reports of 700% increase
Yes.
of contact.
I've seen that report. Yes.
So I'm just thinking, wow. I mean, this is real. I mean, with pandemic, people are stuck at home. Sometimes the finance, the family members or the main breadwinner may have lost their job. It's
Yes.
pretty bad situation. Can I just bring in Chris? into
Chris,
this.
yeah, you were going to say
Because-
something before.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sonia. That was really interesting.
Sonia, that was incredibly moving. I mean, I sit as a non-executive director of a organisation called Housing for Women, and it focuses on women fleeing domestic abuse and coming out of prison. This includes their children. I mean, we've got to recognise that 2 women are murdered by a partner or ex-partner in England and Wales, and that goes across all economic, cultural, and educational lines. And,
so two women a day, or 2 women?
2 women every week.
Every week. Oh,
2
okay.
women every week. And
Okay. Bad situation. Can I just bring in
2 women a day, or 2 women every week?
Oh, technical issue. Is that you, Farhana? It happened. Sorry, Chris.
No, I just wanted to read the comments. That's why. See if anyone's written anything.
Also, 1 in 4 women also experience, domestic abuse at some point in their life. So it's amongst us. It's everywhere. It's some of the most sinister of crimes, right? Particularly when it comes to murder. These people, they know who plan to kill these women. They know who they are. They're planning to kill you a lot of the time. They know where you are. They know your vulnerabilities. And if you're a woman who's got no resources to escape or provide any effective resistance, people become effectively a sitting duck. So the pressure on that person who's the receiver of that is huge. They don't know where to go. But the thing is, these homicides, the killings and murders are preventable. It's got to go beyond just enforcement. Education and training is real. And it affects men too. It's brothers losing their sisters, sons losing their mothers, fathers losing their daughters, uncles losing their nieces. Families can be ripped apart because a woman's killed by another man.
Can I also share with you, Chris? I during my casework, I've dealt with domestic violence happening on men by women. That is also, I mean, it's not reported because it's looked at shame. I myself have witnessed it. This it's a serious issue, especially during the pandemic. Waheeda, you want to weigh in?
Absolutely. As Nour, as you know, we're a domestic abuse charity. We've got free legal advice, free counselling, free Islamic advice, and just general support. And we have seen an absolute massive increase in the number of referrals, the number of self-referrals. We, again, like saying, Abu Bay, there are people who, are suffering from this, both men and women. So obviously we cater for both, but the increase has been phenomenal. And I think one of the important points to remember here is that even though COVID-19 is a stressor, and these stresses can lead to kind of, like you said, problems financially, etc. And this can increase the aggression. The important thing to remember is that COVID-19 is not the cause of abuse. Abusers are the cause of abuse. We have to keep that focus, so it doesn't become an excuse, well, it's COVID-19, people will abuse. I think it's just shone a really powerful spotlight on a problem that's been ongoing for a very, very long time.
My main concern is the victims. Are they getting that help and support? Because it touches on every single area, every single question that we're going to be asking today. Farhana, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly what you were saying. Like, sometimes victims are suffering and negative consequences are occurring, but they themselves, like, they don't have that confidence to actually ask for help, especially in our community, the Bangladeshi community. Sometimes they just want to, like Sonia was saying, visa reason, it could be they feel intimidated, or they think it's norm, this kind of behavior. It's actually not. Like, I think gents, but especially sisters, because they're the victims mostly, like, do not accept any kind of mistreatment. Like, nobody has the right to mistreat you and make you feel uncomfortable. So make sure you stick up for yourself, and if it's very extreme, definitely seek help. Like, you can contact your local counselors, local community activists like ourselves, counselors like Waheeda, You can go online and just find out how you can get help. And now during the pandemic, there's a lot of helplines available. If 13 River Trust maybe can post some later, end of the show.
Okay, well, one person, what we'll do, we'll try to make a note, and we'll try to put all the support services like Nour domestic violence. Another one is www.un.organization. It's about ending domestic violence. One other correction is Asma. She's watching. She wrote 1% may have issues on domestic violence, but 99.9% is female related. I don't know. I don't know the data. I'm just saying there is an element of
Sorry,
that.
what does that mean?
So 99% of the DV victims are women.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can give me if there is any data out there. But I've read that this was increasing. DV was increasing amongst the men. But that's not the main topic. The topic is it's happening and how we can reach out and help and support those who are victims of domestic violence. I wanted to bring in the
Also,
next
sorry
question.
just to add,
Yeah.
sorry, also children. During the pandemic, domestic violence against children has increased as well.
Yeah. And the next question is about children. My son started going back to school this summer, and he had a transition from primary to secondary. Was it the challenges and the difficulties that I observed my own son going through was incredible? And the next question is supporting your children during the holiday times, during the school transition. Can you all offer some advice? People are watching and seeing this unfold. How can we help our children and families in the transition to schooling during this pandemic time? Would anybody like to come in first? Okay, Sonia. Sonia is on the right side, so I can. You're the first. I'll pick your new.
Well, for myself, on a personal experience, I mean, my son is no longer a child; he's at university, but then he's special needs. So I've had huge issues during this pandemic regarding him, actually. And he is on a part-time university course, and because his health he was shielding, and his health was in a terrible state, so he had mental issues as well as physical issues, and it sort of aggravated with severe infections, which sort of made him bedridden for about 4 months. So during that, from the university, there wasn't a lot of support. They said that, why don't you discontinue, sort of take an interruption of studies? And he didn't want to do that because that sort of complicates it. So we had to sort of, keep furnishing them with hospital reports and GP reports and what's happening, for him to simply remain on the course. So at university level, it became a little difficult, I think, to sort of, the accommodation that is offered, from schools and colleges, and at tertiary level at university, it's a bit different. But we struggled quite a bit. But now we are hopefully back on track. He lost a year in the process, but he's going to go back to it. And we've got sort of somebody from the university, the special needs learning support group, come up to us and say yesterday, really, that, okay, we understand he's really lagging behind and how can we help? So we will have a meeting sort of on a personal level next week and try to sort it out. But institution wise, it's been, sort of, I can tell you from the tertiary sort of institution perspective, it's not been easy. I mean, doing online courses for technical subjects or for non-technical subjects, it's difficult for people with special educational needs or even normal students to maintain that level of concentration while doing online classes. I found that a lot of my friends' children were struggling, And another thing which that did also in the pandemic is they became extremely attached to gadgets, to technology, which made, sort of made things even harder at home to sort of have family time and to have sort of segregated time for sort of gadgets as well as sort of family. but to keep them sort of focused as well as cheered was a huge challenge for most of the parents. I mean, school home tutoring has been the greatest challenge for parents who were not only struggling with job losses.
Can I just interject? Aisha Fatima Powell, she writes, children thrive on engaging with nature. The great outdoor releases energy, connects us with earth and our fitra. She's given, get them away from the screen and isolation. Then Maqsood, Mohibur, we also have to be fair. Some women is talking about taking advantage of the system or exaggerating on, I think he's touching on domestic violence. And we shouldn't generalize. There may be one or two cases. We are quickly running out of time. So I'm going to say, if you're watching, please call in with your question. And the number is there. Please call in. At least one or two callers would be nice. Waheeda, you want to respond and try to keep your answers brief, so we can go through other points as well.
Sure. I think, the point Aisha raised in her comment about outdoors, definitely. I was talking to one of my colleagues who's a counselor in schools, and she kind of made the point that actually schools are very different to what our children have been used to. They've become very regimented, very restricted. So actually that outdoor activity is even more important right now. Even playgrounds are restricted. There's areas they can go, can't go. Secondary schools, I've got 3 children. One started GCSEs, one, again, like Abu Bay, one of my sons kind of had the transition year to secondary as well. And it's really important to listen to children and give them the time and space to express their emotions, encourage them to talk if they're feeling sad, anxious, and also just noticing behaviors, right? Your children, notice the behaviors. Is there any changes in their behaviors? One of the things that my colleague also mentioned was that, to be aware of children who are really compliant and just seem to get on with it, because they're the ones that we can kind of miss out on and think that they're coping fine. But actually, there could be a lot happening. So also just encouraging them to speak, to share, just, checking in with schools. What do they have for well-being? Some of them have counselors, some of them have learning mentors. So really kind of, linking them up with people and services that can help, and just asking for help when you need it always, just if you feel like you're out of your depth, speak to your GP, speak to a counselor, speak to the schools, so you can get the support that you need with the children as well.
Okay, thank you.
Waheeda, I was going to ask Waheeda just a quick question.
Yeah.
How would you deal with very little children, like 3-4-year-olds, when they first went after the first lockdown to school? They were quite shocked, that shocking experience. How do you consolidate or deal with a very young child?
I think, again, just presence, the more present you are for them, listening to their stories when they come back from school. Obviously, they're much younger, engaging them in activities like drawing and creative stuff. A lot can be picked up from children's drawings. Just really being attuned to your child is what's really important. And again, noticing any changes in behaviors. Do they seem more irritable? How are they in their eating, their sleeping? All of these things are really important. Keeping a routine, reading with them. A lot of books and even picture books can have, stories that can help at times like this. So, checking with the schools, asking them what books might be good to read with your children, to help them with that transition as well.
Okay, very interesting points. We're at the stage of the show where we show a very short video of some of the work that we've been doing. So just before we continue, I want our technicians to, if you could show that the video on the orphan young girl, and then we'll come back to the show straight after that. তোমার নাম কি থাকো? শারমিন বেগম। আচ্ছা, তোমার বয়স কত? 12। ওকে। তোমার আম্মা কয়? মারা গেছো কতদিন আগে? তোমার 3 মাস তো ইয়া। তোমার আব্বা কয়?
আব্বা জানি না, তুমি পাগল হয়ে যাবে।
জানি তোমার আব্বা কোন আনো? তুমি খালো কে টাকায়?
বর্তমানে আমার আম্মার লোকে থাকে।
তোমার আম্মা নু মারা গেলা, আপনার তোমার আম্মা নেই? জানলে কি ডাকো? আম্মা ডাকো। আপনি কোকা চাই? তাই যে আপনারা এমনি কিতা আপনি তাই মা মারা বাদে কি তো
মা মারা গেছিল, যাওয়ার পরে সে তাই মামুর সাথে ঘুরে গেছিল, বাড়ি আসছিল। সাথে মা মারা যাওয়ার পরে তার মামু রাগ করে নিয়ে মার গুরুস্থানও নিয়ে ফেলাই দিয়েছে। আমি গুরুস্থান তুলে তুলিয়ে আনিয়ে সময় আমরা মনে করো পরিবেশ পালাও আছে, ছোলাপিকেও পালা আছে, তাই তুলে অনেক টাকা খরচ করছে। তুলে লেখাপড়া বাদ দেবো, টাকা বাদ দেবো, পারতাম না আমরা আনতাম খাই।
আপনার হাজবেন্ডে কি তা করবেন?
মাছও ব্যবসা করে জাল ধরি পাই।
আপনার আত্মীয় নি থাকা?
আমার আত্মীয় কিছু না, মানে আমরা ওই সময় বাচ্চা কাচ্চা পাইছি না, বাচ্চা কাচ্চা লাগে নষ্ট করছে করে তাই খবর পাইয়ে এসে আমরা
I haven't come across a story like this. The mama puts her on the grave. This person who's not related hears about this story. She cannot have children. Her and her husband go and rescue her. So who is really rescuing? You and me who have all the wealth, or ordinary simple people like this sister? This woman, she should be honored. She should be Inshallah, brothers and sisters, if this story touches you, please come forward. Help us to help this orphan, and also the helpers of this orphan who are now struggling. Okay, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Just want to say, if anybody is interested in sponsoring an orphan, do contact us. We've grown significantly, like with the work with the Eating Care Muslim Burial Fund. Because of time, I'm going to combine 2 questions, and I'm going to ask Farhana if you could kindly try to access some of the messages through the link and read some of the comments. So let me try to combine 2 big questions. We also know there's a massive problem with the mental health. People that we know having difficulty accessing mental health support. And then in terms of people have life plans. My eldest son is in the final year of university. All of it has just come to a stop. It was very challenging time. Some people wanted to travel abroad. My own father, I haven't seen him for a year. He was supposed to come last Saturday. We had to stop him from coming because some of us have COVID, or in my case, I had COVID and I'm on the second lockdown. So all those people impacts. I just want to ask, touch on mental health and your life plans. I'll start with Chris this time.
Thanks, Abu. Yeah, well, what can I say? I got married recently. We had planned to do that in Poland. However, due to COVID-19, we had to cancel larger celebrations. So it was very much a COVID wedding where we could only have 6 or so people and no rings. Everyone usually spaced out with each other. So it certainly turned my plans for the future upside down. And this is obviously feeds into, if we are going to have another proper celebration, around family planning as well, and decisions around that, and the stress of reorganising that all. Both me and my wife work full time, and the impact that has on, never leaving the office, as it were, half the time, as well as those external factors as well, can be quite challenging to keep up appearances as well.
Okay, thank you. Waheeda.
Mental health, I mean, you touched upon it. There's there's a crisis, and there's going to be a growing crisis, as the pandemic unfolds. And also there's been so many cuts to mental health services over the years. I think one of the things is obviously identifying people who are vulnerable, and I think charities like Eden Care and 13 Rivers Trust, there's support services there for people who are vulnerable. There's obviously Nour for people who are survivors of abuse. There's projects like the Latif Project, who do Islamic counselling, and they're doing specifically kind of counselling in COVID-19 times, and the impact of COVID-19 on mental health. So even though there have been cuts, there are kind of services that are there. So kind of really finding the services, connecting people up, checking up on each other. If your neighbours are vulnerable, elderly, isolated, or disabled, just checking up on people, helping people, listening where we can. There are self-help resources, but again, just kind of really checking up and being able to connect people to those services, and just recognizing that actually sometimes it's okay not to be okay. This is a pandemic, it is difficult times, and it's okay not to be okay, and that it will pass. Just kind of that reminder that things are difficult, but it will pass. If we can hold on to that. It's funny, Chris, that you say about weddings and stuff. I was the same. We had a wedding planned for April, and it was literally like 2 days before lockdown, doing a quick, wedding ceremony in March with literally, again, a handful of people. So things change. And I think, this pandemic, it makes you rethink a lot of things. And I think for me, just that gratitude and presence, you really start to value people's presence and the absence of their presence and what that means. I've seen my mom once since the lockdown in March, because she's diabetic, she's high risk, so she's been shielding, and it's tough. It's tough not seeing family members, so really kind of valuing the presence of people, I think, is one of the things that has been, fundamental for me.
Can I just two quick points? I think Eden Care, we've been working with the Latif Project to deliver counselling support to people who have lost loved ones, or they're very much in need. And somebody's asking, how do they contact Nour Domestic Violence? Is there an email, or is there a website that you have?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't know if you want me to just kind of say it.
Say it out so
yeah,
they
so
can reflect.
you can email support at, and it's Nour DV. So it's not the one on the line, but the dash, nour-dv.org.uk. So they can email that, or you can look up www.nour-dv.org.uk. So if they look up the website, there's a contact form on there, there's a support email. And I think just, really important, one of the points that Farhana mentioned earlier, that nobody should have to live in fear, right? Everybody has a right to a safe life, and a life where they can, they can be at peace. And one of the things that, the campaigns that Nour did was around the whole idea of patience, and that sabr is not suffering in silence. So, when people say to you, have sabr, it doesn't mean you have to suffer in silence. So if you need the help, please reach out.
That's a very, very powerful message. Yeah.
Farhana,
Chris, sabr means patience. So, yeah, we shouldn't be so patient that we should be suffering. That's what it means.
Yeah, very, actually, very, yeah. Have you got any messages to read out?
You want me to read out quick comments?
Yes, please.
Yes, so many. So I'm going to just do like a handful at a time. So first of all, Ahad Mira said, Assalamu alaikum and good evening to everyone on the panel. Asma is saying that she feels that the local network is not helping that much to her experience, and she has actually been helping a lot of women. So well done to you, Asma. And we have someone, Shafqat Zaman Khan, who's tuning in from Australia.
Wow.
And then Lisa saying that it's lovely to see Waheeda and that everyone's doing a great job. I'll leave, there's a couple of questions from the viewers. I'll leave that to later.
Okay, all right. Do ask. Just prepare after Sonia. Just ask those questions, please. So, and then we're going to have to wrap up. You'll be surprised. It's 10 o'clock now. So, Sonia, the same points around mental health and life plans change during the pandemic.
Yeah. Thank you, Abubai. It was difficult. I've got an only child, and he's not a child. He's 27. And he suffers from a very deep cardiac, a very sort of life-threatening, life-limiting cardiac and respiratory problem as it is. So he wears at the beginning of the show, there was this video clip on a person who was actually using the ventilator. So that's a daily phenomenon for us here at home, and the oxygen and so forth. So for him, it was particularly difficult because he had, on top of whatever he's got, he was severely shielding, and then he had a very bad infection. Now, it was a very bad skin infection, which affected him so much that it sort of affected his legs and walking, and he was bleeding and he couldn't walk for about 4 months. He was in bed. But the hospital would not see him because it's not cancer. So I kept on ringing the doctors. I kept on ringing the GP. I kept on ringing the hospital, and they wouldn't see him because skin-wise, it's not life-threatening. But what they failed to see was that any infection for a person who's a cardiac and respiratory severe patient, for them, any infection is fatal. So at the end, I had to force myself, take him to the GP and take photographs of his condition. And, he was eventually seen. I had to take him privately. I had to force him to the hospital and say, look, by you guys not treating him, how bad things are. And so that caused a terrible amount of stress at home for me, who's setting up a business, for my son, who was not able to study, as well as suffering so much, taking care every day, and there was no carer allowed because he's shielding. So I had to clean the beddings every day with blood. There was on the floor, there was blood, so you had to carry him to the bathroom every time. So it was very, very stressful. Then on top of it, my parents, who live very far away, they have been unwell, so I have not been able to travel. I usually go and see them once a year, but it's been almost 2 years and I have not been able to see them. So that's stressful when they are very unwell. So all of that, along with the economic impact that the whole thing has had, affected, no matter how much I smile, it has affected my mental health terribly. And to keep everybody going at home is also a challenge because as a parent, you're supposed to be managing it all, and they can't see you vulnerable because they get even more stressed if you are stressed out. So you've got to maintain this calm, which is so hard at times, even as a mother or as a professional. I feel that, there are times when even I needed help, but I couldn't. I had to be strong for the sake of the family. So it was quite challenging, I must say.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Farhana,
But
do you have...
everyone deserves a break, so I hope you're getting your break now and then. Yeah, I have some questions. So
yeah.
Thank you to everyone for all the lovely comments. We won't have time to read all of them, but there are a few questions from Hassan Moinuddin. What, as a community, could we do, especially of places of worship? So what can we do as a community? Also, there was another question, I think. What do the panel think of inequalities evidence regarding the COVID-19 and those effects on the community? So I'll leave you guys with those two questions.
Okay. Any more comments?
There are lots of comments. Yeah, there's
okay.
There's a mashallah inspiring story from Abu Baib. That was Maqsood Mohibur Rahman. Samia Kudu, Salam al Waheeda Islam, looking forward to hearing about your important work with NDV, which she mentioned. Malika Gochol, Assalamu alaikum. Waheeda, we love you. And then Aisha Fatima, children strive on engaging with nature. The great outdoors releases energy, which is true, connects us with the earth and our fitra, gets them away from screens, isolation. We are blessed with beautiful countryside in this country, even in the urban areas. So Maksud Mohibur Rahman, connecting with children emotionally deeply in this lockdown is a key for their well-being. Yeah, so quite a lot of comments.
Thank you. Right, we have come to the end segment, and it's very important that we give our guests the opportunity to say or summarize what you want to. You've heard all the questions, so I suppose what I'm asking for a summary or suggestions that you can make. I'll give you a minute or two to say your piece, and then what you could do is the number of messages that are coming through the live stream is so many, and this show will be watched. Just keep in mind, it's going to be watched by many around mental health, around domestic violence. So please offer your last comments. And if people want to get more help, what do they do? Where do they contact you? So let me now start with Waheeda. If you could start, please.
Yeah, I think closing, summary wise, just really kind of focusing on when people need help. Just please reach out for help. It's there, even though the service may seem restricted, even though we're in a pandemic, the support is available, whether that's for mental health or it's, for domestic abuse, So there are charities like Nour, there are other charities working in this field. There are, charities like Latif who are working in the mental health sector. So if it's not abuse related, but you're suffering from the impacts of COVID-19, contact them. Contact Nour, please. If you are suffering from domestic abuse, you don't have to do this alone. We're here, and just looking after yourself, self-compassion, honestly, is just absolutely key right now. We are living in a pandemic. It's something none of us have ever experienced before. Nobody has a map to this. Nobody has a rule book, guidebook in how to navigate this as parents, as professionals, so just really going easy on yourself and just, allowing your presence to be there with your family, just kind of really spending quality time, listening to each other and being present for each other as much as possible.
Thank you. Farhana, did you want to say something? I saw your hand up. Okay.
No, I'm just listening to our guests, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
okay.
It wasn't. No, there was a fluff. I was just like getting rid of a fluff in the air.
Okay.
But I just want to highlight what Waheeda said. Don't suffer alone, and just reach out for help and do different therapies. Mental health is very important, sometimes even more important than physical, I think. Without mental health, nothing works in our body. So make sure you're looking after yourself.
Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, I wanted to thank the incredible co-hosts and these inspiring panelists as well. I mean, Waheeda and Sonia, stories and the work you do is hugely important. I think the main thing to take away from me from today was this international eliminating violence against women day to day from the UN. I think you pointed out earlier, Abu, and programs like this are incredibly important in raising awareness, and sharing information across platforms like this to let people know where there's access to help, but also to highlight the real need for us to educate all parts of the community on domestic violence. It's not just down to policing and other agencies. It's got to be through the community. Women are going to their brothers, their sisters, their friends, their religious leaders, their employers. They're going to be disclosing high risk abuse, and just knowing that there's a Nour, a platform out there, or Housing for Women with their programs, you know, people see it all the time. It's just about raising that awareness and making sure that often that those women who are murdered don't just become a statistic, and that, you know, we can prevent it, because they were failed by society, those that are killed. We can't just disregard it. You know, we need to, it's a powerful message. We must influence those to change it and do our part.
Thank you. And Sonia.
But, you know, in terms of domestic violence, especially, there are so many agencies. We've got the National Domestic Abuse Helpline by Refuge, for example. We have Women's Aid. We also have Men's Advice Line as well. We have Gallup, which is for members of the LGBT and community. We have Hestia. We have Chain. We have IMCAN. We have Southall Black Sisters. For disability as well, those who have got disability and are suffering domestic abuse. We have Stay Safe East. We have Sign Health. So we have a lot of agencies, actually. If the danger is imminent, please call 999. And if you can wait, you know, even if you can't say anything, I think that line is going to be helpful, even if you keep silent, because they'd be hearing the background as to what's happening and sending you help when they hear you. So bear that in mind, whether you dial 999 for imminent danger or dial, you know, call anybody else in all these sort of community organizations that are there, or helplines, or lawyers, or your family members. But don't just suffer in silence, whether it's men or women, and just get out and take that help. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to ask Farhana, who did a fantastic job today, by the way, co-hosting. Farhana, your summary of today.
Yeah, no, I'd just like to say to the viewers that you're not alone. As you heard from the specialist tonight, that we all go through problems. You know, the pandemic is here, and it's not here to stay. So we can look forward to the future without it. But meanwhile, we are going to go through hiccups and ups and downs. Make sure you look after yourself. Make sure you look after your health, mental stability, and keep an eye on each other. I think us as a community, if we work together, look after each other, we should overcome it better. Also, I'd like to say a great thank you to our guests. You know, I really enjoyed listening to their words of wisdom. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Waheeda, so much. And thank you, Abu Ghai, for having me.
Okay, no, it was a pleasure. This is me doing my summary. I think we discussed so many important topics, and each one of them we could have dedicated a whole show around that. I just felt that we touched on domestic violence, and the message from that is, some people expect you to have patience. This is a sabr from an Islamic word. You do not do sabr when a crime is committed, and DV is a crime, and you should not, because it will increase. So there needs to be intervention from family or professionals. It's very important. That's a must. Number two, so anybody who says, any of the alims, the imams say sabr, sabr, I'm afraid I have to disagree with your advice, because it's a crime. You don't do sabr. You try to get that help. Number two, around mental health. I have, one of the messages that was sent today, a lot of men, there's issues around mental health. It's not just men, it's women, it's young people. I've just learned my own son, 12-year-old son's transition from primary to secondary with the COVID, how it can impact him. So we have to look after the mental health and well-being of our family members and our friends. My advice is, again, go to the specialist if you're stuck, and they will help you. Also, in terms of things that you can do yourself, and one of the things that's benefited me was the exercises, going outdoors. You know, you could do that still during lockdown. So I'd like to apologize for not reading out all the people were writing all their questions instead of calling in. So that made it a bit difficult. So we couldn't read all the questions and points. Please, what my request is specifically to do with mental health, to do with DV. Please share this video. A lot of people will learn and understand where they can go and get help and support from. If you know somebody who is suffering from DV, if you know somebody who's suffering from mental health, or they're having real difficulty around COVID, especially the isolated elderly people, the number of people who are approaching us, we're based in Shadwell, and the number of people who are approaching us for food packs even is incredible. People are suffering, and we need to reach out and offer our support in various ways. Yes, so now next week's show, it's going to be a very interesting one. It's I'm hoping when Abjubai comes, he agrees to it. It's another area that affects our community, and that is black magic and dark arts. We're going to be discussing that topic, black magic. Stroke, you can say, you can put mental health, but black magic, and we'll try to bring some learned people on our show. People who've gone through the whole black magic issue. They had personal experience, and so tune in next week. I'd like to thank all our guests, Farhana included. You've done an amazing job. Thank you very much for coming on. And this could be so if we all kind of just a little wave to all our fans. Okay, we got that right. Okay, thank you very much, and please continue watching, and we'll catch up with every single one of you after the lockdown. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.